Good evening, Gurugram parents. Welcome back to the Premier Schools exhibition. It's always very, very exciting to have you at our platform. And this, especially this interesting session, which is focusing on blended learning, we are going to start very shortly. And as I'm noticing that last today, I think 2 sessions we have already completed and there was a huge attendance. So I must congratulate all the parents attending Premier Schools exhibition, especially on Sunday. I can understand putting in so much of effort, not moving out of your home, missing your Sunday brunch and attending the sessions. This certainly reflects a greatest amount of commitment on your side. For that, on behalf of my company, Affairs Exhibitions and Media Private Limited, the organizer of the Premier Schools exhibitions, I welcome you all. And today, in order to address this exclusive topic, which we are discussing on blended learning. Now, we have a very, very distinguished panel who's going to take this discussion forward. And I'm going to steer this conversation, taking the role of the moderator. So please feel free to put your questions right at the bottom. You'll find one Q&A section is there. Click on that Q&A sections. As the session is progressing, whenever some questions is coming to your mind, feel free to put your questions there, your name there. That question will come to us through our a team of moderator who are there, and our panelists will try to take all such questions which you are interested to know the answer about. Okay, so let me introduce the first speaker of this session. I'm not following any order, but let me introduce the first speaker, Mrs. Sonia Gulati. She's the Deputy Director, Academic Development and Innovation at the Bluebell Schools, Gurugram. Ms. Gulati is a learner evangelist with over 28 years of experience. She has a master's in English literature from Delhi University, a diploma in journalism, and a certificate in pedagogy of play by Fairy Dust Teaching, which is from US. She also holds a certification in coding in early years and in hybrid and blended learning. Her association with the Bluebells group of school goes back to over 17 years, during which she established the Learning Center, from where she today leads a team of educators. Ms. Gulati was conferred with India's Achiever Award for Education Excellence by Promoting Achievement Foundation and with the Platinum Award for Leader for Capacity Building by Edu Excellence. Thank you, ma'am, for joining in, spending this time this evening, and I'm sure we'll have a very enriching session today.
Thank you, Efes, and thank you, Vivek, and a warm evening to all present here.
Wonderful. The next speaker is Dr. Amrita Vora. She's the Director, Education, GEMS Education India, and Executive Principal, GEMS International School, Palam Vihar. Dr. Amrita has been an eminent educationist for past 23 years. Child and female psychology has been her calling since her days as a student, and thus her PhD thesis deals with contradictions within the self. She has also written various articles on education and parenting. Of these, Education Revolution in one of the noteworthy series published in the Times of India. Dr. Vora is now working with GEMS Education in the capacity of Director of Education for GEMS Schools in India and Executive Principal at GEMS International Schools, Palam Vihar. Thank you, Dr. Amrita, for joining the session. It's always a great pleasure having you.
Thank you, Premier, and looking forward to learning and enriching both in this session.
Our next panelist is Ms. Vandana Khanna. She's the principal at the Venkateshwara School, Gurugram. With almost 2 decades of teaching experience behind her, Vandana Khanna surmises in creating a positive student-centered school culture. She has to her credit BA honors in English and MA in English literature from University of Delhi. She went on to acquire a degree in BEd and move on to become a deeply committed educationist, starting her teaching career with GD Goenka Public School, Vasant Kunj, and subsequently headmistress as MBS International School, Dwarka. She administered compelling and inspired vision with a sense of core purpose, multitasking in all spheres of overall school development. As a principal of the Venkateshwara School, her conviction and passion is to inspire, empower, and educate. She believes in enforcing discipline and preparing children to the global citizens of tomorrow. Her forte is modeling excellence and celebrating uniqueness. Thank you, Mrs. Vandana Khanna, for joining the session.
Thank you. Looking forward to an interactive session.
Okay. So the next speaker, last but not the least, Ms. Gita Verma. She's the principal of GD Goenka Signature School, Gurugram, with more than 30 years of experience as an educationist. Her approach to learning is pragmatic, ideological, and pedagogical. She has worked in various capacities with the CBSE, the International Baccalaureate, and the Cambridge International Examination, and it has helped her grow as an educationist, administrative head, and an instructional leader. As a former head of international curriculum, IB and Cambridge at Heritage Experiential Learning Gurugram, she looked after all operational aspects, academic and administrative, for the IB and Cambridge programs. Other domains include instructional leaderships, teacher, coaching, mentoring and training, curriculum articulation and development. She was also the founder head of school at Pragyanam Gurugram and has been trained in pedagogical excellence at Stanford University in 2018. Welcome, Mrs. Gita Verma. Thank you very much for joining this session.
Thanks, Vivek, and thank you to Premier Schools Exhibition. I think what you brought today is an esteemed, panel of educationists and future-forward individuals. It's the need of the hour, and welcome everybody, and thank you so much for making me a part of this hot and topical issue.
Wonderful. Okay, so as we all know, blended learning is a combination of offline and online instructions where students interact with the instructor and other students. So for both a physical classroom and an online platform. Now, blended learning is also, as we know, understood as a type of fusion between traditional education and modern methodology that uses technology. Now, with this definition, what we have in our mind, the first question which I would like to put forward to Sonia ma'am, Mr. Sonia Gulati, and ma'am, what are the key characteristics of a quality blended learning, right? Can you please highlight on this, and then we will take this, responses from the other panelists as well.
Yeah. Well, Vivek, as you said, that blended learning is a hybrid or a mix of offline and online education. So naturally, the first prerequisite is that you have to have a very well-defined digital platform or the online platform which you are using. Now, getting a digital platform, I would say, is one of the easiest tasks in today's times. What you need to move forward is that your teachers have to be very well, not just trained, but be very well, they have to be very comfortable on using the technological platform. That is one thing. Secondly, you have to be in a very solid agreement with your parents. So while adopting a blended learning model, you need to have good orientation with the parents who are not wary of it as a model, because so far we've all been used to a face-to-face model, face-to-face learning model until the pandemic struck, which just forced this upon us. But to now take it forward, you have to have an orientation with the parents. And more than that, these are the first prime requisites. You need to look at the curriculum which you are going to be adopting. Your lesson plans, your curriculum has to be accommodated and modified as per the blended learning model. Your rubrics, content acquisition is very easy. Any child can log on to any pre-recorded video. There are so many YouTube videos available. You just Google and you have, the entire information there. But then blended learning, especially to school students, is not about teaching the curriculum. It's about the learning of the students. So you have to have very well-defined curriculum. All your activities, your lesson plans have to synchronize with the blended learning model. It has to be, as far as possible, synchronous learning, because in the offline, when you are there with the child, there is an immediate feedback. So in the blended learning, both in the online and the offline model, we need to assure there is an immediate feedback happening with the child, and it is not pure content acquisition alone. The school has to take care of going beyond textual content. We have to ensure that all those things which you do in the offline model, you need to translate those on the online platform also to suit the blended learning model, which means that, okay, if there is collaboration happening, if there is communication happening, all these skills need to be looked into. Your hidden skill curriculum should be as alive in the blended learning model as it is in a face-to-face teaching model. You children should have those opportunities of doing peer work and group work, and you need to take care of all the critical skills, like if we ensure communication is happening, we should ensure collaboration is there, we should ensure critical thinking is there, which can be taken forward through so many platforms. You could have your panel discussions, you could have children getting into. Now, what happens is, supposing you're doing a class on meats, just for a namesake, don't create a breakout session. Ensure that what is being done in that breakout session is age appropriate, and also that children are imbibing everything. Only then will it be proved to be a successful model. Otherwise, it is like, okay, you do a chit chat and fine. It's like I switch on the Zoom and, just deliver a lecture and move off. That is not what, in its true sense, blended learning is all about. Moreover, what we also need to look at is the age appropriacy. Now, it works very well, especially at the senior classes. For certain things like, where it's a pure content, this thing. So fine, children can log on, look at it, and the educator as a facilitator takes it forward in the form of a discussion or any other activity. It could be children preparing a podcast. It could be some mini projects happening in the breakout rooms. However, and that is the beauty of it, that this will teach children blended learning. If successful, it teaches children self-management. And it has to be adaptable and flexible in nature. You can't follow a rigidity pertaining to it. There has to be flexibility. Children get into a mode of self-directed learning also. But again, it can't be so stringent. When you come down to your pre-primary, your primary years, the ratio and proportion, the combination of online and offline would always vary. Your little ones would not be able to adapt and will not be able to gauge so much purely. So on an online model. So you have to have those very activities crafted. You have to bring, give them that feelers of outdoors also in the blended learning model on the online platform. So all these things have to be, and all the stakeholders, I would say, the student, the parent, the educator, the school leadership team, there has to be a common collective vision towards it while adopting it. Only then can it prove to be a successful model. And yes, far more synchronous in nature. Like we should ensure it is more synchronous in nature than asynchronous learning happening, which can happen on the blended learning model also. That's my submission to it. Thank you.
I really appreciate and the idea that even the innovation is much more required in the when you're transacting your classroom activities to an online model, to make it more engaging and enriching for the students. And certainly, I think the second part of the question, the answer which you gave, I think at different levels, the engagement will vary. Now, this school has to decide, what kind of engagement. So I think, when we're talking about building curriculum, I think maybe around 20 years ago, 15 years ago, now I think this is extremely important to curate something. If this blended learning is going to there, it's going to stay there, and I'm sure it will. So I think the usage is predominantly, which we can, at least estimate will be required in our education system. So this is again a vast subject which needs a lot of deliberations and discussions. And
also, Vivek, if I may just add, sorry to interrupt you, if I may just add, what also needs to be taken care is that all your value-based education, your socio-emotional, everything like it's catering to, it can't be a case cake offline, aapka ye chapter ready tha, lesson plan, you are implementing that. So modify it accordingly and ensure that all your skills, everything is looked and taken care, and the children are able to imbibe it better.
You see, I think, I have made some questions, especially when you're talking about social emotional learning and all, because those things, how these things can be integrated. So I'll come to that point. But with the first point, the question which I asked you, Dr. Amrita, Gita ma'am, in Vandana ma'am, if any one of you would like to add, some more points to what Sonia ma'am, she has mentioned on this topic. Yeah. Amrita ma'am, please.
Yeah, so I think one thing that we need to remember is that whatever happened during the pandemic was more like an emergency response. It was a situation and we all responded to it, and which is a very good thing. But at the same time, we have to remember that technology has really percolated in the very bloodstream of our lives today. Whether it is as adults, as students, as teachers, anybody, especially in urban India. Yes, there is the digital divide. There are still challenges that need to be met and so on when we look at the much larger picture. But when we look at the picture of progressive schools, well, it is here to stay and none of us are living without it. So how long can we really try and shy away from it? Any kind of progressive school, way before, I mean, since 10, 15 years, I've been hearing about blended learning. What happened during the pandemic was remote learning. It was an emergency response. We need to move away. And when we are already today in the hybrid model, where some children are beginning to be in school and some children are learning from home, teachers and students have both adapted very well. So as Roy has put it, pandemic is really a portal into a new world. And yes, we are entering into it. What we are preparing students today and similarly teachers is for a world where the classroom has transcended the idea of space and time. The 4 C's that we've always spoken about, critical thinking, communication, collaboration, and so on, have transformed themselves. Critical thinking is and creativity are not just critical thinking, creativity, they are also design thinking, they're also problem solving much more than earlier. And more than that, identifying or defining the problem where it all begins. Empathy where it all also begins. Similarly, collaboration or communication. I mean, I remember I started my career with higher education. So I remember teaching cross-cultural communication at that stage to postgraduate learners. But today, my children in school and very, very young children in school are engaging on a daily basis with cross-cultural communication. They are not just with that, but also virtual collaboration and cross-cultural communication. And that's also very much a skill that they would need whichever career that they choose. So we cannot move away from it. Technology is definitely a demon. It has to be tamed, but it is also an enabler. We've got to use it as an enabler and right from a very young age, ensure that our children really know that balance, learn that balance. That balance is critical. The minute that balance in any school, in any family unit for that matter, goes haywire, there is a big problem at hand. So which is why that balance is so critical. And we're not talking here remote learning, we're talking blended. It's a whole different pedagogy, as my fellow colleague was trying to, Ms. Gulati was trying to point out here too, that it's a whole different pedagogy. The structure of the curriculum, the way it is designed, the way it is taught has to be transformed. The student is should always have been at the center. We've all as educators spoken about it since years and years. Student ownership, student-centered learning. Now it's genuinely student-centered. We just have to allow them to be at the center. Sometimes when the teacher's trying to take hold or take control too much, she's busy just saying, okay, please switch on your camera, please don't mute yourself. It doesn't work like that. The child has to be at the center or it won't work. Synchronous or asynchronous, nothing will be blended. In class or online or hybrid, nothing will work unless the student is genuinely at the center. So this is the real challenge. And therefore, the entire pedagogy is different. Thankfully, we've been, the teachers who are trained for it very well find nothing more useful, nothing more enriching. And so do students, and they won't leave it. But yes, it does have, we all want to be back in school. We all are missing that presence of each other in schools. And that is equally critical. And within that, building in social, emotional aspects, within that building reflection and reflective practice is again critical. So and technology itself, which is why we are moving from technology and innovation to innovation in humane technologies. And I think that's where our children, and if you ask children to take the lead, the self-directed learning, as she also spoke about, that is really, really making a huge impact and difference. And this is what kids are enjoying. Even very young children, early childhood, for instance, Initially, parents had apprehensions when the pandemic began as to, we've to sit with them and so on and so forth. But within a month or so, many of us have seen, and parents have come in and told me that, now my child gets up on her own and she switches on the system and she is there and everything is great. And I don't even have to be there. She's doing everything. She's telling me, she's doing the student-led conference and telling me, and so on. So these are the things that work. And when we look at blended learning, we're not looking at something new. It's a very, very well-researched concept. It's just that probably we still have those apprehensions for change. We always tend to resist change when it comes to the whole community. The pandemic has made us embrace it in a certain situation. Now, when it's no longer going to be compulsory, probably when we are back, though it's an endemic now. So we don't know what's next. So uncertainty still looms large. But when we are back, I'm sure we have to bring ourselves to accept this change. We can't shy away from it. There is no cookie cutter solutions. We will continue to learn as we get into it. That is definitely there, and it will continue to. It is already evolving. It has evolved all e-learning has evolved like anything over this last 2 years, and there's so much more available. What is very, very critical and has evolved the most is data and data tracking. And I think assessment as learning, not just for learning, has had to be should have always been a very critical part of teaching and learning processes, and using that data to both quantitative and qualitative data to really feed into the teaching process again, and allowing for children to really self-evaluate, peer evaluate, and collaborate in the process is critical, whether we are online or offline or blended or hybrid, whatever. So that's where we are. I think that's what is important. And citizenship is important. Understanding the whole world, not just my own space and time, is very, very important. And understanding the fact that perspectives may vary, and I can have my own, and building my own, that intellectual confidence to express and build my own perspective. I think that's where we contribute as schools. That's what we have to allow for children and help children do.
Thank you, Dr. Amrita. Gita ma'am, Vandana ma'am, would like to come in. I have, just got one other question which is there. So in case if you want to give your response to this, or shall I get into the next question, Gita ma'am, Vandana ma'am?
Yes,
like
we can move on to the next one, but I would like to add that, yes, it is impactful, it is engaging, and, of course, it is student-centric, definitely. But I would also like to, inform the parents here that there's a lot of exposure involved. There's a lot of fascination that is involved because children are on the net all the time. So a lot of supervision needs to be taken care of from the parents' end, because internet security is at stake. So even though it's instantaneous communication, it's student-centric, it's impactful, yet parents need to be very cautious as to, children need to be supervised.
The role of parent is also, as a stakeholders, it's important what you wanted to, highlight upon. So I have one question which I would want the panel to address little, in detail. Now, Gita ma'am, just one question which was coming, to my mind while I was listening to Soumya ma'am and Dr. Amrita. And since this is a parent, this is a session for the parents. Now, when parents are looking for school, so first, 3-4 pointers which was there in the mind, what kind of board, okay? Then what type of school, right? Then they're looking at the learning and teaching pedagogy. So those things are there. Now, according to you, now blended learning should also be one pointer which should they take when they're approaching the school. Now, this is whether yes or no. Second thing, in case if they're looking at blended learning, because this seems to be something which will be an integral part of the school education. Now we can highlight on that. Now, what kind of questions, how do they verify, understand what kind of questions they should, when they're meeting school, they should ask the schools, are you offering this, that, or not? So if you can list down 2-3, takeaways for the parents, so that they more or less they have got little clarity on the subject, what this blended learning is all about. So some takeaways for the parents, so that when they are engaging with the schools, they are prepared with some relevant questions.
Yeah, thanks, Vivek. Thank you, everyone. Ms. Soumya, Dr. Amrita, I think you covered the gamut of what blended learning is. So thanks for that. Yes, Vivek, certainly this is going to be the future. And yes, it's come to us. It has just come out. It was a black swan event. The pandemic just came out of the blue. And yes, we've adapted. Now we've got to do a little more backward designing, and we've got to make our parents also literate in how to work with, something which there is an overflow of information, and also teach the children how to sift the wheat from the chaff, because it's an information superload. And we need to teach children that kind of literacy where, what do I do with this information? What is fake news? What is not? How do I discern what is going to make a difference? So yes, student independent engagement, student independent learning is going to go with the blended learning model, but we've also got to make them literate about what to choose and what not to, and parents as well. Coming to parents, yes, they're definitely going to ask that, what are you doing in terms of maybe the hybrid learning? And we're already facing these questions, or even blended learning. The school has to be very, very transparent and clear. What I usually do with my parents is I say, we are all for the student. We are one community. So it cannot be an us and them, even when blended learning is concerned. And I think that resonates well with parents, because when we say, what do you want for your child? Often it's not simply measured in terms of a degree or a job or a success. It's mostly to do with certain internal, abstracts, like I want my child to be happy, I want her to be confident, I want her to be healthy. Now that's where you make the connect and say, okay, so you want all of that. You want your child to have 21st century learning skills. So that student independent learning is very important. And we offer that through our blended learning model. So very transparent approach, lay it all down. I say share your curriculum model also with them. Take them through a trial class if need be for them to finally make a choice, and explain the benefits of what blended learning will do, and link it to what the child will be when he or she passes out of school and becomes an adult and steps into the real world. How does that blended learning model, which is here to stay, helps her or him adapt, flourish, and transform the world, and also grow as a human being? So I think transparency, accountability, integrity in what we are doing with blended learning is very important. Simply showing the hardware will not do. It is what you do with the hardware, which is, and how it impacts the child, is where the parents will have a buy-in.
Thank you for covering this. Vandana ma'am, would you like to add something here? Or shall I go to the next?
Yes, I can say that parents need to trust the school, and once the parents trust the school, then the learning practices can take place. And see, after all, we've saved the academic year, and even though there were smart boards and robotic labs earlier, still getting all things in place during the pandemic, teachers workshops, preparing teachers, motivating them, and keeping everything for the online classes in place, and bringing in a variety in the online classes, because we have tried to take the children on a virtual excursion, taking them through different videos, presentations, activities, involving them in a variety of activities, even though the regular classes could be of the art and craft or the aerobics or music. But other than that, how to keep the children engaged and make the classes interesting. So having workshops, regular workshops for teachers and such things. So yes, these are important for to keep the children going and make the classes interesting. And of course, parents, if they trust the school, then there is no hassle.
Yeah. So ma'am, it seems that blended learning continue to be the integral part of the learning outcome. Now, considering this, now would there be a cultural difference, as most of you are senior academicians and managing and heading the institutions, now would be the cultural difference for teachers to cope with both face-to-face and blended learning. So what kind of challenges? Because as a parent, we are not aware about your challenges. So one is about the cost is the major thing. So what kind of difficulties or challenges you are seeing, and certainly which you as a school leader, you would be working in terms of preparing the whole this blended learning, within inverted, this is the new, this is the new point, this new terminology which is there in comes to the parents. So parents, if you can throw some light on this and highlight on the challenges, and let's be very open to discuss on this, so that at least the parents should also, as a stakeholders, have a very fair view, what challenges schools are facing.
If I may respond to that, if I may just respond to that, actually,
yes, ma'am.
When Gita ma'am was answering the previous question, and since we have the Gurugram parents over here, definitely blended learning is here to stay. And in a city like Gurugram, I think parents should look at it as in a very positive mode. Imagine a day like yesterday when practically the entire city is flooded.
Yeah.
Gurugram city, it rains, it becomes schools have had to declare holidays for pollution. The children started calling it as pollution holidays. So this is where, why this kind of a model can become very useful, especially in a city like Gurugram. And that was something which came to my mind when we were talking. So definitely parents need to look at and ask the school about their blended learning model also. Now, coming to what you were saying, yes, definitely there is a cost which the school has had to bear. And it is not just buying the technological infrastructure, but also ensuring training of teachers, not just training of teachers, but plus also ensuring digital, I would say, availability to the teachers, ensuring that, their devices and everything are well taken care of, and increasing bandwidths. Now, all this comes at a cost. More than that, what is also important is that now those schools in Gurugram have been doing all along cyber safety workshops. But I think for the blended learning model, it has become all the more imperative for the educators, for the parents and the students, like for all the stakeholders to become very familiar and also have proper norms laid down as an organization, work out a digital policy of the school, what is allowed, what is not allowed, are we allowing devices in, and if we are, which grade, and what are the, all the protocols which we need to lay down for it. And also the fact, let's accept it's not just three stakeholders. Technology is the fourth stakeholder now where education is concerned. So we have to ensure even the cyber security, not just of the students, but also of our teachers. Because when you board onto a technological platform, be it a child or an adult, each of us is equally vulnerable. So all these things also are incurring a certain cost, which definitely all progressive schools have been investing and are investing in it. And since we have to have this model to stay, because I don't think it can, your ratio proportion may vary, but you cannot I think it, and it is best to adopt this model. Because there are so many other things, it transcends boundaries. You can have your international competitions on virtual platforms. So many other things come down. You could have a theater competition rolled out pan-India or even pan-world. And it brings down, your exchange programs. It brings down the cost of traveling and everything. More than that, a parent is also at ease. If a parent is uncomfortable for certain things, which are perfectly understandable when the child logs on to a technological platform, is at ease that, okay, my child is having this exchange program with, let us say, a particular school in France. And here I don't have to go through that mental trauma of the child being away from me for 10 days and, on a school delegation in a foreign country. And with the Indian mindset, we are scared of sending $1 and all, which is very natural. So all those things are also there. But then all these things, if we are saying for an exchange program, okay, we are not spending upon travel, but it is not to say that we are not spending at all. There are those additional costs which are being incurred for having all these collaborations over a virtual platform also. That's what I wanted to add.
Yes, Dr. Amrita, please.
In fact, when Gita mentioned the hardware and the software, that again is a very critical point. Adding to that, I often see many educators also and parents also getting confused by the fact that, oh, there's a lot of hardware here to showcase, so there's a good model. Now very critical it is to see that it's not the hardware. Hardware was always there with most schools, right? But technology genuinely has to be in the hands of the learner. That is critical. Smart board never meant that. And sometimes very flashy devices are available that may be there on every child's desk and so on. But when I checked up, like you get into the details of it, it is the software that makes all the difference. Now, this device, what is this, what is the capacity and so on, which apps can actually work on it, which cannot. Those are critical things to really see. So these things very often, there are flashy things from a marketing point of view shown. So since we are talking in terms of parents, it's critical for parents to understand that it's not the hardware, it is more the training of the faculty and the kind of software being utilized, how it is embedded in the curriculum, how empowered are various stakeholders, and yes, technology is also one of them, how empowered are all these stakeholders to really make good use of it. Is it genuinely academic integrity that each one is ensuring while blending it? And I see some questions also on the chat box. So can online learning replace school classroom permanently? Definitely a big no.
No.
Definitely a big no. Yeah, once in a while, yes, it was emergency response. We needed to do it. We ensured that learning is not quarantined. All of us here managed all that. And every problem comes with some gift in its hand, and this gift came to us. There was a lot of learning in the process. Yes, for all educators. But it doesn't mean that we can ever replace brick and mortar schools. There's already a whole lot of research around it, and children need to be actually in school. So do we all adults actually need to see each other, not just on online platforms. We need to really physically meet and greet each other. There's a whole lot on that front. I'm sure my fellow colleagues will love to add on that.
Yes, Ms. Verma, please go
Sports
ahead.
cannot take a backseat.
In the question that you asked about, what are some of the issues that teachers are facing? And I really want the parents to come into a world and see. One is because you're available all the time and you can work from home, that work-life balance has got a little disturbed. Sometimes parents are insensitive. Sometimes teachers don't know when to stop, that they get a little carried away or there's a little pressure. So I think one of the challenges that we're going to face with the model that's come in is you need to have a work-life balance. Whether it is children doing work, asynchronous offline after they've done some work here, or it is teachers who are at home. So it brings a lot of comfort, but it never really stops. And that's something that we as leaders and mentors have to do, to tell them, spend some time with your family. Don't be stuck with your laptop. Technology is great. All is good. It's a wonderful world out there, but you've really got to bring a work-life balance. I think we also need to be sensitive to that with the teachers as well. And I want the parents also to be a little sensitive for it to become successful, for it to stay, and for it to work and flourish.
Wonderful. Vandana ma'am, you wanted to add something? I think you were saying something. You wanted to add some response?
I just said that sports cannot take a backseat. When she said that we are all anxiously waiting to be back in the campus, then I said that, yes, parents need to understand that practical learning, the experiments and hands-on, learn by doing yourself, those things are, overdue. So children really need to be back into the campus. Yeah.
Soumya ma'am, we all know that, all the subjects may not be able to deliver through blended learning, right? So, or maybe at this point of time, as a school or the teacher or as academicians, maybe we are not prepared today, right? So have you thought about something so that, what could be the gradually the schools will be preparing, and ultimately up to what are the subjects you think that you will be able to cover, up to which grade, comfortably, and certain things which may not be replaced. So this is, certainly all schools have recently started blended learning. So I'm not asking that whether you have been able to do this in your school, but what are your thoughts, so that parents can get some fair idea about it?
Yeah, Vivek, I would like to like when you said up to what grade, I would say that blended learning can be adopted across grades, but as I mentioned earlier, the ratio proportion would vary. Subjects which have more of practicals, this thing like pure hardcore scientific experiments, which the children need to do that. It's like, as Vandana ma'am mentioned, we need to enjoy that play of chemicals in the chemistry lab if we want that 6 in the cricket pitch or those kicks in the football ground. So there are certain, so it will all vary. The ratio proportion is going to vary. We've started charting out and working on the curriculum across grades. That is varying depending. It's not that one particular subject, because as it is at Bluebells, we don't follow up to the middle and even I would say grade 9 or 10. It's an integrated learning system. We have the multidisciplinary approach. So it's not as if we are looking at subjects in silos. What we are looking at is concepts and how those skills are getting embedded in it. So keeping the skill framework in mind, as I said, it's one is content acquisition and the other is building of the skills with the socio-emotional also becoming a component of that. So keeping the skill framework in mind, we've like just as the NCERT has its learning outcomes, blended learning outcomes also we are started charting out, and at the same time ensuring that we are meeting the developmental continuum of the children. We are meeting the desired year-end learning outcome of each year as per age appropriate and grade appropriate. So looking at that, it's not subjects in silos. We are designing the curriculum. What are the activities? It's like, if it's, let me say, a virtual tour, when things like, become normal. I'm not talking of the pandemic times now, because during the pandemic, we've used simulation labs, we've used virtual tours, done museum tours and heritage walks with the children. But then if it's a virtual tour of, let us say, a place abroad or outside Gurugram where we are not able to, plan out an excursion, parents are not willing. So that component is still available for the children. At least they are not deprived of it. They still gain something out of it. Yet things where we can reach out physically, where children are desired to be on campus for some of those, because we have to ensure that nowhere are we compromising on the reading scale, on the numeric ability, on the scientific temper of the child, upon the environment sensitivity, and your social outreach programs are also there. So keeping all that framework in mind, it's not subjects alone, or it's not like, okay, 6th, 7th, 8th, we can have this, 9th, 10th, we can't because 10th may board, and not that way, or 12th is going to be an year-end exam, not that way. It's like ratio proportion varying, each concept being studied, how the outcome is being met, what are the learning outcomes, and then that's how the plan is happening where we are concerned.
So ma'am, does CBSE or ICSE are also making some digital blended learning framework for the schools to practice?
Frameworks are definitely in process. In fact, recently only CBSE has, our teachers are doing that capacity building program. CBSE launched artificial intelligence blended with multidisciplinary approach, meaning to say it's not your computer teachers only who are attending that. It's like the English teachers attending it for English. So that is there. Plus, they have also launched a program which is to do with innovation, design thinking, and it's like it's the proper course, where the teacher has to finish a module, attend it, submit an assignment, there's an assessment happening, and then you move on. So this is definitely there, and teachers from Bluebells are like, I'm aware of it because we are all a part of it. We are attending that.
So Amrita ma'am, maybe in near future, suppose the syllabus gives you a syllabus. CBSE board, for example, give you a syllabus that in grade 6 you have to cover these many subjects in these many hours and so on. So maybe in near future, do you expect something from the board, or maybe it's an international board or our national board, that these grades, 20% or 30% in the primary years, you can keep it online version, and the remaining can be, as Sonia ma'am was advising or suggesting, that the proportion of the delivery between the online and offline, the proportion can be decided by the school at this point of time. But do you see such possibilities where the framework will be prescribed by the CBSE board or by the ICSE or any international board?
See, when we talk about the CBSE, it caters to a very, very, very large volume.
Absolutely.
And there, we none of us can deny the digital divide, and they understand the challenges. I'm part of the CBSE Progress Card Committee and various other aspects that we are directly working with them on. And therefore, I know those challenges, which were also thought through when the NEP 2020 was being drafted. But at the same time, things that Ms. Gulati just talked about, like AI, like the digital. So there is a whole lot of choice that is all CBSE has always tried to put in. Those who can, please do, is the idea. So we already have been doing AI, that program, for a while now. And I'm sure so have so many other schools. So a lot of these subjects are already there. A lot of this push, so to speak, is already there. Encouragement to do this is already there. But yeah, it cannot really get prescriptive. And when we talk about international curricula, as GEMS has schools across various curricula, we have IB, we have IGCSE and ICSE and all kinds, you name it. In international curricula, if we talk about IB, learning was anyway always blended. Children do appear for exams also online using their system. The only difference that came about this year was the timing of the exam. The duration of the exam was reduced considerably, and obviously then the questions, and also since children were now at home, academic integrity has always been a buzzword in IB, and the policies were signed by parents anyway, but there was additional features added, and parents were made to be the invigilators and so on, and processes were made a little more stringent. They were, I think, the most ready, because the problem of digital access is not really a challenge in IB, and mostly in IGCSE also. I'll say mostly because there still is. But for ICSE and CBSE, digital access is a critical challenge, which is why they cannot make such things mandatory unless, see, it used to be roti, kapda or makan, and today it is roti, kapda or makan or internet. We have to reach that stage. Till we reach that stage, CBSE cannot really make these things mandatory. When we do, I'm sure they really want to. Till then, the government is encouraging it, and all those of us who are able to have been already at it. Somebody has asked a question, so should tablets replace books? So schools are pushing for tablets and devices, etc. Well, the pen and the book and the notebook will never be replaced. I don't think. Although I'm sure many people may disagree with me, very often I hear that discussion. But well, to my mind, it doesn't. There's a whole lot of research that also is there to show the kind of impact the skill of actual writing has on our brain development. And that will always remain critical. Yes, technology is there. I am using currently this system, the laptop, to be part of this discussion, to connect with all of you. But I have a notepad here and books and a pen and so on. I can't survive without it. At least our generation cannot. And I'm sure I see my child also and all the children around this generation, the youngsters today, even they cannot. Even they tend to need this, right? So this books and technology have to come together. They are resources. Textbooks were always one of the resources, never the only one. We had all sorts of other resources. And the internet and technology becomes a very, very useful resource for children to be able to research and do a lot more and connect globally, because the world is increasingly becoming a much smaller place. We had more than 146 student exchange programs because of this, because the costs do get majorly reduced. And as Ms. Gulati pointed out, yes, all parents were able to actually experience that thing for their children, those who otherwise may not have had, because the cost is sometimes prohibitive. It was much easier to have almost every competitive event, almost every collaborative event, student-led or teacher-led, went international, given the pandemic, because it was possible. And the minute there was a possibility, children made it happen. They will not stop at it. And they learned a lot in that. And can we really think of depriving children of that opportunity? No. They are being prepared for life. And this is a part of life. How can we really say that, okay, बिल्कुल किताब के हिसाब से पढ़ाएंगे, ऐसे तो नहीं चल पाएगा ना.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, Mrs. Verma, I'm coming to you, but there's one question which I want to take up with you as well, from Dev Sharma. My child is 2 years old, and we are still waiting for the schools to start offline classes, as it will help him grow socially. But do you suggest to enroll him for a online nursery now, or should I wait for the offline classes? Will online classes help him? Right. So this is the first part of the questions. Like this also, strike me of, requesting the panelists to also connect this topic to the social emotional learning, because with this blended learning, so how much the social emotional. So Gita ma'am, you can take this question if you want to, and maybe you wanted to add some points or your response to the previous question with Dr. Amrita.
Thanks, Vivek. So we face this issue, especially with the first generation of the children who were going the first year pandemic, the nursery children, and our parents would come and say, देखो मैम बच्चा बैठता नहीं है, हम नहीं चाहते उसका screen time हो, कैसे करे पर पढ़ाई तो करानी है. So what we used to just advise parents would be that a lot of what we learn and what we grow socially is in our listening and our speaking more than the reading, writing. So you would say, expose the child less, but let the child at least be around, at least listen. So we did not insist that the child has to sit, with the laptop and meet his friends, and he could be playing around fine, but some bit of that conversation, the peers talking, some were sitting quietly, some were not. So we did encourage parents that let it happen. At least the child is getting to listen and be in a world where there is some interesting interactive activities happening. There's some song and dance and poetry and all of that fun activities are happening. So some of the parents adapted. But this year, when the second wave began and the new generation of parents came, many of them chose not to put the children onto the online model, and they said, we are just waiting for the offline model. My advice to such parents would be, get online, because as Dr. Vora said, it is here to stay. We need to monitor, and parents now need to be also doing a lot of socio-emotional support. Teachers have to be more than teachers. They have to be facilitators, and they have to be the socio-emotional support. But all of that will help the child. We should not insist that the child sit quiet in a quiet place with the uniform and all of that, but at least let it exist in some degree of in the listening and the speaking world of the child. So this is what I would recommend.
May I please add?
Yes, ma'am.
To do with early childhood education, I'm really a passionate believer in early childhood education. And I think early childhood education has been the worst hit. And there were, as Ms. Geeta said, parents who decided not to send their children or admit their children to school for these kind of reasons. But we are already seeing a huge learning loss there. This is the most critical age for your child, the most important age in terms of brain development. Whatever your child will learn today will form what your child really becomes in future. So the impact is critical. There is a whole lot of research. Do check out James Hackman's research and look at the impact that early childhood education has. We have a festival of early childhood education coming up. We're calling it Chrysalis. The only reason to have this festival is that we felt there's this lack of awareness on early childhood education, which is why there has been so much of learning loss in this particular arena. And it is time sensitive, more importantly. We can have bridging programs. Schools have devised bridging programs for children who probably missed out on one whole year or sometimes more and then come in. Online, to implement that bridging alongside the regular curriculum, it's tougher. One. The other is, and we are still, there is no vaccine yet for that age group. So we are still likely to continue online for that age group for a long time. The other is that despite the bridging programs, what a child could have learned or would have learned way better at 2.5 years of age would not be the same as what the child would adapt at 3.5 or 4.5. The brain development varies. There are developmental milestones, and not anybody knows it. It's not about teaching ABCD or 1, 2, 3. there are a whole lot of key learning areas that a child really is learning at this stage. And you need well-trained, really well-trained, equipped facilitators for this process. There has been also too much of contained within home. While your child may not be attending actual physical school, also please ensure that physical play remains. They're not in any kind of confined space and all that. So all these aspects are critical. If you want to learn more, know more, do check out Chrysalis from 14 to 18. That's a festival for parents and anyone interested in early childhood education to know more.
Yeah. So, ma'am, something very interesting, I would like to share, because most of the schools, I don't know and make a very frank, give a very frank suggestion. How many of you encourage that if some parents are sitting beside the child and monitoring how the teacher is teaching? So do you encourage this, or you don't? Certainly the teachers doesn't like such kind of scenario where parents are sitting beside the child and learning. Can I have a very frank, because I have a story behind it. I'll give you a very nice story, my personal life story, which will be very interesting for you and insightful as well. I can promise you that. So all of you encourage or discourage? Maybe you encourage, maybe your teachers does not encourage much.
Vivek, if I may respond to that. See, if the child, like the case was last year, especially with the little ones where they were logging in, okay, they needed that support from the parent. But that's what I'm saying. There has to be an orientation with the parent where the parent is in agreement that the parent is there providing the child that support to log in, log out, not monitoring the child and not being a critique of the teacher also. If it is up to that, because soon children also could manage to do it on their own. Because what happens is, it is not about just observing the teacher. It's not that. The child also will not be able to build that bond with the teacher. As Gita ma'am pointed out, though, especially the first generation ones who are going to enter the school, like, going to start their school journey. So many of those cases happened where teachers were in fact connecting in our school. One-to-one video calls were made initially to start making that bond, and then coming to peers getting together, and then small groups, and that's how the whole process began. So as long as they are doing that, fine. And now with the second year into progress, most of the children, even that age, know how to mute, unmute, and everything. So I think being a critique of the teacher, if you have a problem, it's better to discuss it offline, because never will the child be able to build a sense of respect. If that respect doesn't happen, the respect for learning doesn't happen. The child will feel, okay, isse better to main baith ke Doraemon dekh lo. And again, as Miss Amrita pointed out, the early years never come back of your life.
Absolutely.
How we love to get onto those swings, even at this age, at least I do. That period will never come back. In fact, I like to share something, a parent feedback. One of our parents who was really facing a challenge last year, with work from home and managing the children's education. They had twins. So they, in fact, kind of just decided that, no, we would like to take a break. We advised, well, we didn't force. But in January, they came back, and actually, they expressed, we are regretting why we took that break, because we realized that the child has had so much of a learning loss. It is not about learning your phonetics or learning your numbers. It's about building skills. Because what can also happen for building those skills, building that collaboration is, at that age, like we went ahead and planned a camp evening. I remember it was Father's Day, and we all decided, including the educators, pulled out bed sheets and saris where tiny tents were created inside the house because nobody could step out. All the fathers and the kids together, identically, even the parents supported us. And the fathers singing away. So we gave them that camp-like feeling. Similarly, a picnic in the house lawn or the balcony. The mothers jotted out the menu, like, we decided common menus, whatever, kid-friendly food. So they were bonding. And as we notice now, grade 1 and 2, especially what we are doing is, when the children log in for their classes, first 15, 20 minutes, teacher is just on mute. She'll just log in to ensure, take her and goes away. Children rap together, they sing, dance, throw a tantrum, whatever. That is, at least that bonding is happening. Their social skills are happening. So if we are allowing that freedom where the educator takes a backseat, I think the parents also need to ensure that because what happens with the parents sitting there is, Teacher पूछ रही है तुम जवाब क्यों नहीं दे रहे हो? See, so and so is answering. Why aren't you doing this? Don't get into that anxiety.
Yeah, absolutely agree.
Don't get into that
It
anxiety.
depends on the parent, I would
Let
say.
the
Yeah.
children
So I
think,
think Geeta ma'am, you're right. Depend on the parents. So let me give you my example, right? So I have started enjoying, I never interfere whenever first thing in the morning when my child logs in and she starts a conversation. Maybe, I got the opportunity over here, what kind of, English teacher is presenting. So I go back to my old days. I relate to some nice poetry, Hindi. So my favorite subject, my child doesn't know, is English, Hindi, history, and geography. I simply enjoy. Why? Because there's so much, and I have become a little closer to the teacher. Now I always tell my child, your best teacher, my favorite teacher, your father favorite teacher is English teacher. Second is Hindi teacher. So I'll make sure whenever I go to the PTM, I meet the teacher. So maybe the rosy side, the positive side is, I think I'm getting a shadow learning or getting back to school, with this online. So there's a positive side to it, which many parents, maybe they enjoy. It's not the point that they need to interfere. At times, mother or father, someone wants to understand whether the transaction between the child and the student, child and the teacher is happening or not. But there's another rosy side, which I simply enjoy the conversation. I've started respecting the teacher.
They have new respect
hard
for the
work.
teachers.
I respect the teacher, the way they maintain the calm. You see, in my family, I know the temperament level, where people are, suppose maids are not there, the temperament goes high, because there's so much of dependency everywhere. Now look at the teacher. She is so calm. So the teacher, without even, doing anything extra, they have earned so much of respect. I've written a small mail to the school principal, and I really, because this opportunity which I got, otherwise I would have thought, okay, like another school, this is another, this is maybe another school for my child where she's going and studying. So even this is a positive side. So always say there's a shadow learning which is happening, and I am connected through my daughter classes to such a wonderful set of teachers. And simply, this is the way I think some of your positive parents, I think you should also encourage, if you want to do a shadow learning, want to go back to your school, even you're 50-year-old, 45-year-old, attend the classes with your wards. Maybe a good concept.
In fact, Vivek, when you were talking, sorry, Amrita.
Sorry, I just wanted to add to what he's saying. We've all heard so much about, helicopter parenting and stuff like that over this time. Of course, certain things had to happen. But what I've really seen through the pandemic, the bond between parents and schools has really, really grown stronger. The number of appreciation emails and happy emails from parents I've seen over these last couple of years, I don't think I've seen in a lifetime. Reason being that parents are actually now seeing the classroom as is. They are genuinely seeing the kind of effort that goes in. They are seeing it firsthand, and they are therefore, while they don't see what goes on in the back end still, but what they're seeing, that is telling them a whole lot. And they're realizing, and they're coming back and saying that I didn't realize so much. This is how you all teach. Oh, this is what happens. And parents are really appreciating that. And I think that's beautiful. And that partnership was always critical. Nothing will work unless that partnership is the strongest.
Otherwise, we never got an opportunity to partner with the school, just going 2 times or 3 times in a year with the PTM and just meeting the teacher and taking the response. But this is an opportunity where, you feel like congratulating the school or the teachers. And, always makes my daughter goes and say, ma'am, my father's best teacher is your father's best teacher. He's so fond of you, the way you present the class, the way you manage the class. So it gives a different, happiness and excitement, when acknowledgement comes from a parent to the teacher as well, because generally the acknowledgement goes to the senior management, to the head of the school. But individual teachers, or a small bit of appreciation, maybe out of 100 parents, even 2 will appreciate. That's a fantastic thing for a teacher. Okay.
In fact,
absolutely, that's very encouraging. And if I may also add one point,
yes,
when we're talking about children, studying without the help of parents' assistance, the sense of satisfaction a child will have once the child is able to answer correctly, I think that goes a long way in encouraging the child, because he feels that he can do it on his own without the mama or daddy helping him. So that sense of achievement also should be there in a child if parents are not around. But yes, otherwise this bonding between the school and teachers and parents is essential. Yes.
Wonderful.
First-hand
What I just
information
wanted
is...
to say was, sorry,
Yes, ma'am.
what I just wanted to add was that especially like Amrita echoed most of my thoughts, but especially that bond we've seen happening where the fathers are concerned. Because in an Indian scenario, even 90% PTM is supposed to be a mom's domain. Like you would hardly have fathers, coming for the PTM. It would be like in the offline mode, the mother normally, would come and understand. But what has happened is, especially like, especially when schools open in a hybrid mode. Now, what happens is teaching fraternity is 90% females. So your mothers are away, fathers on work from home, child is attending. So we've seen that, the fathers taking a lot of keen interest, whether just as you were mentioning, Vivek.
Absolutely.
And that bond is happening with the parents now. So that is also very critical and very important for both the parents to take an interest, where the father's taking such a keen interest, where the child's own upbringing is concerned. So that also is one beautiful aspect which I saw happening.
Wonderful. I think, ma'am, we have almost covered all the points here. So can we have just a quick 1 minute closing remarks from all the speakers, starting with Gita ma'am, then going to Amrita ma'am, Vandana ma'am, and finally Soumya ma'am. Over to you, Gita ma'am. Closing remarks, a piece of advice for the parents, especially when it comes to blending learning and when they're looking at Gurugram schools, what kind of, what should be their approach?
In fact, there is a question by a parent that, what should I look when I'm looking for blended learning and which board offers a better blended learning option? So my only answer would be blended learning is here to stay. We need to embrace it. Having said that, it will require a lot of design, a lot of training for the entire community at large, whether it is the teachers, whether it's the parents, whether it's the students, all of those people, a lot of training, and it will need some time. But let's start in smaller modules. And there's no board which gives you a better blended learning option. It's really the school's philosophy. It's really the school's vision and mission. A beautiful CBSE school can take that forward, taking it as a framework and actually making students become independent learners. Similarly, a very posh international schools may not be able to do it, and they may just be going by what is like the minimum requirement. So yes, let's embrace blended learning. Let's keep an open mind. But please remember, let's be patient. Let's learn from our mistakes. Let's take little baby steps. And let's create a model where this becomes the model for the future.
Yeah, Vandana ma'am.
The key.
Thank you. Thank you. Vandana ma'am, please.
I would say that we can, easily achieve our learning objectives with collaboration and effective lesson planning and appropriate tools. We need to upgrade ourselves from time to time because technology becomes obsolete very quickly. So if we upgrade ourselves, update ourselves, and have our lessons plans in place, we can do very well.
Yes, thank you so much. Amrita ma'am.
Yeah. So I think there are a whole lot of questions. There is a whole lot of choice for parents, particularly in Gurugram. And therefore, this decision is always difficult. But what is critical is, I think every school is trying to do the best. And the teacher, whichever be the school, you have to look at the teacher. It is the teacher that matters. No school is better than its teachers. And the culture of the school, if everybody is genuinely happy, the children are happy learning, the teachers are happy delivering that curriculum, teaching, the bonding is strong. That's what you're looking at. Learning happens when there's passion, when there's positive energy around. And that's what you want. Let's just keep that respect for the institution of school and teacher in our hearts. And we'll always be right, no matter which school we end up choosing.
Thank you. Soumya ma'am, please.
Yeah, I would just add to what Amrita said, that blended learning or no blended learning, look at the faculty, the educators, look at the longevity, look at the attrition rate of the school. Because if the teachers are there for a long time period, that means your educators are happy, your children will be happy. Look at their educational qualifications. If you really want to, you can always try finding that out. Moreover, also one factor, while adopting blended learning, let's all just keep in mind what we've always kept in mind. Technology is there. Let technology empower us, not overpower us. We have to keep the people skills. We have to keep the humane element in mind. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you, all the esteemed panelists. It was really a very enriching session for me as well. I learned many things from the perspective which the distinguished panel you have shared. And my special appreciation and thanks to all the parents who have attended this session. And I'm sure you must be having some more questions. So this session is live on Facebook. So this session recording will be there. Feel free to post your questions there so that those questions will be taken by our team to the respective panelists. And we will certainly share your details with them in case, you know, they want to respond to your query. So feel free to engage there. If you have liked the session, click on the like button, share it with your family and friends so that more and more colleagues, your family members can enjoy the session, listening to it and get some greater insights about blended learning. So thank you very much, ma'am. It's real pleasure. It's a great pleasure having you all, such a distinguished panel. I truly enjoy having great conversation, a good conversation in person. But, you know, since you know, this virtual exhibition we started due to pandemic, but we look forward to have a physical exhibition along with the virtual together, hand in hand from January 2022. Thank you very much. Have a lovely evening, ma'am. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you so much.
It was wonderful. Looking forward to that time. Looking forward to that time very soon.
Absolutely.
That's a lot of blended learning in its true sense. Premier exhibitions.
So 2 days of physical exhibition followed by 15 days of online. So this will go hand in hand, right? Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much. Bye-bye. Have a lovely evening. Thank you.